So the next stage is we need to look at is the stages of hair growth. Now, it's very important to know that hair does not all grow at the same stage. And that's what we call the cycle of hair growth. So we also call them stages of hair growth or hair cycle. Again, this is your homework. Go and find out more about it. But this is the things I need to let you know about it. When I did my hairdressing course, which is the cosmetology course, my teacher said to me, if you want to remember the stages of hair growth, just think of ACT. So ACT. Now ACT is also a section in the Bible called the book according to Acts. So I never forget that. ACT, ACT. A stands for anagen. Now anagen is the stage where our hair is actively growing. So we just described how hair grows. So the blood vessel comes through, bringing blood into the dermopapilla, and then it pushes the cell that was there, and then it pushes it up and hair grows. Now our hair is constantly in that stage. That's why I say to everyone, especially young people, you've damaged your hair, okay, big deal, but you can always get that hair back because your hair is constantly growing. Unless there are some things I can talk about as we move along that could lead to the point where you say, you know what, this one is gone, it's not going to come back again. But for as long as you have blood flowing in your system and you're healthy, your hair is constantly growing. So 90% of the hair on our head is in this stage of actively growing, and this stage usually lasts between 2 to 7 years on every head. So 90% actively, cells are being moved up and new growth is coming up. Then the next stage in hair growth is cottagen. Cottagen is that stage where the hair suddenly says, you know what, I've done enough work, I'm not growing anymore, and it just stops. So a certain percentage of our hair is at that stage. So no new cells are being pushed up, so nothing is happening. This hair just sits down. This stage of hair, it's usually about 2 weeks that this stage is happening in our head. And the last stage is the telogen. Telogen is that period when that hair that's been resting now decides, you know what, there's nothing happening here. No new cells have been pushed into my follicle, so you know what, I might as well fall off. And so they drop off. So hair is growing, hair stops, and hair falls off. And we're supposed to have this happen constantly. So between 10 to 15%, remember we said 90% is the active stage. 10 to 15 is in these stages of either some of them have just sat down, do nothing, or some of them are dropping off. So that's what you need to know about hair. So now as they're growing and they've decided to stop, what then happens? Every day when you brush your hair or comb your hair, the ones that stopped growing and just dropped off your hair now drops off. Those are the ones you see in your comb. And we need to have at least 100 strands of the hair on our head comes out in the form of this hair that's dropped off from our head. And that's why when people are complaining, normally they say to us between 40 to 100, and I've actually read somewhere where it's up to about 200 depending on who. You would then be worried and say, oh my God, all my hair is falling off. No, all your hair hasn't fallen off, because remember, 90% of it are constantly in process. Now, once they've dropped off, a new hair then starts all over again. So the anagen stage then pops up again. So hair is constantly in motion. This is what happens with our hair. Unless you've grown older, where we'll get to that, I'll then talk to you about what happens there. Again, some facts to know about hair. Our hair grows ½ inch every month. So that's 1.2 centimeters every month. Our hair is pushed up a slightly bit. And that in a year results to between 10 to 13 centimeters in a year. So we need to be aware that we need to help ourselves by eating healthy, and all of that will happen. On average, the human head has at least 100,000 strands of hair. So if you're losing 100 and you have 100,000, would you notice what's happened? I don't think so. But remember, it's important you know what some of the things you need to know. It's important that you know that most times, now this is another interesting part, when you read your cosmetology book or your hairdressing book about hair, what they say to you is hair is weak when hair is wet. Now that's a general statement, and I always like to show people that it's not everything you read in the books that is the reality. Whoever was writing that book was focusing on a type of hair, which is the Caucasian textured hair. Because remember we said the strands of hair are coated with the sebum, so the hair is well protected. The Afro hair is, on the other hand, a different kind of hair. So what happens is, for Afro hair, the hair is very strong when it's wet. So remember, everything we're told is just the reverse for us. While you need blow dryer to blow dry the Caucasian hair in order to take away grease, we don't need a blow dryer, because if you do that, you're actually drying out your hair more. So the Afro hair is stronger when it's wet, and so that's the best time to work with the Afro hair. So stay away from dryers and different types of things that puts heat in your hair and takes out the moisture. So your hair is really easy to work with when it's wet. So the more moisture you put in your hair, the better off you are, because we are dealing right now with the black hair industry. If you watch the Chris Rock's movie talking about good hair and bad hair, this is where you need to understand for yourself what is good hair and what is not so good hair. I'd rather call it good hair or unhealthy hair. So good hair is hair that's shiny. Remember we talked about the cuticles. So if the cuticles are closed and it reflects the light, then that hair is good. Again, when it comes to the Afro hair, it's usually a bit difficult to tell when the hair is actually reflecting light. But the way I know good healthy Afro hair is if I can feel the volume in the Afro hair, and the ends are not scraggy or straggly, as the case may be, where we talk about we usually talk about the hair breaking, and you talk about split ends and things like that. Hope we get into that, because if we do, I'll explain a bit more. But usually the hair is thick, it's firm, it's got body, it's luscious. That's good hair. The cuticles are closed, they're strong, they can stretch, so when you put your hand through, they stretch with you, they're not just snapping off. That is good hair. So usually we call that good elasticity. That hair should have good moisture. So good moisture is when you put your fingers through that strand of hair and it's not breaking off, it's not feeling really rough and dry in your hands. Now the opposite of everything I've just described is what we know as unhealthy hair. Unhealthy hair or poor conditioned hair is hair that has no shine at all. So if you were typically looking like a Caucasian strand of hair, it looks very dull. But for Afro hair, it looks very brittle. I mean, you actually feel it and it's like bits of hair hanging all over your hand. That's not healthy hair at all. And the reason they look really dull most times is because the cuticles are open. And usually in hairdressing, what they say to you is if you try to wash this hair, the water just goes through, because the hairs are porous. So it just allows water to just flow through it. That's not healthy. The ends are very dry and they split. Split means, in the real sense of it, split ends means the cuticles are open and you're actually seeing the cortex. And then the cortex, remember we said is keratin, which is very brittle and dry, so they just snap off. Now, the reason we make a big deal about the tips of the hair strands being split ends is because that's the oldest part of your strand of hair. So if there's any damage that's going to happen, it happens to the one that's the oldest. Now imagine if the hair that's closest to your scalp was damaged, that means the whole strand is gone. But if the split is at the ends, then you're fine, because all you have to do is trim them off. Now, I've had people ask, what's the big deal about trimming the ends of Afro hair? If you don't trim them, this is where we're explaining a bit better. The cuticles then start opening as you're going further down on the strand of hair. And if this happens and this hair becomes really rough, this is where it actually breaks down or snaps very easily. And so if the split travels down the strands of the hair, then the hair is completely damaged. But if you quickly snip it off when it was starting at the beginning, which is the ends, the oldest part of the hair, then you have a healthier hair that's growing backward, growing out. So important you take a good look at the ends of your strands and see that they are not looking very scraggly or dragging, especially for Afro hair, because our hair is very coily. If you find it's looking very straight, then that's the part that needs to be trimmed off. And most times when people are growing out of their relaxed hair, you find that the part that's really straight, that's the part that the chemical had actually gone into the cortex and taken off the sulfide bonds, and that's the part that you want to cut off when your hair is really growing out. So hair that is dry, porous, does not absorb moisture, it just sits there, do nothing, that's the really damaged hair, and that's the hair we want to avoid. So what's the importance of hair? It's very important for you to know that there's a reason we have hair, and why would people want their hair taken good care of. So remember, we can all live very happily with our hair. Remember, we said you can cut the hair and you don't feel any pain. So this is why you see men generally don't have hair, so they're always going to the barbers and getting their hair cut. However, hair plays a very important part in women's lives. It helps to present our personality the way we want people to see us, and this affects our confidence. I had a client come in here the other day and she said to me, if my hair doesn't feel good or look good, I don't feel good. And I've had people say they become so attached to having a certain type of hairstyle. Hence, you find lots of people cannot do without the weaves. And I was reading something yesterday where it says, is your hair hanging by the thread? Why? Because lots of people are just stitching away. They don't care if there's hair underneath or not. They don't care what they hang this weave on. As long as they can get 5 packs of Brazilian hair, Peruvian hair, Cambodian hair, they don't care how their own hair feels underneath. So this is why you, as the hairstylist, the hair consultant, you need to work with your clients to help them. So we're looking at a situation where you need to help them with their confidence. If your client walked in not sure of herself, and I've seen that a lot, the hair is so messy and so scattered, and then they sit down and they say to you, oh, could you just help me? I want to have this kind of look, and I'm happy to give all that to you for you to be able to work with me and tell me what to do. And then you finish with them and they still leave feeling the same mood that they came in. What that means is you have not done a good job. Because what I watch out for my clients is the minute they walk in, I wish I could just take an image of what they look like. And when they're coming out, I see this bubbly personality pop out and they're smiling from end to end. That shows you've done something great because the personality has come out. What they wanted to see is out because you've helped them with that image they wanted, and the confidence has just shot out. So this is what your client wants from you. They want to be able to feel good about themselves when they walk out of your door. So thinning and balding hair is a blow to people's confidence. And I had another experience where the lady came to me and she said, I am really desperate. I lost my hair. And I said to her, what happened to you? She had, her menopause came and then she lost all her hair. Remember, when we go further to understand the things that could cause hair damage or makes you not have hair, there are so many of them, but we'll get to that. So her menopause was her problem where all her hair went with it. And she completely locked herself indoors. She couldn't go out again. Her confidence went with it. And I said to her, but why didn't you think of wearing wigs? And she said, no, for me, I go swimming all the time. Can you imagine me in the swimming pool with a wig on? It's not going to sit there. So what did you do then? I asked her. And she said she'd gone to, there's a specialist place here in the UK where they go and get their hair taken care of. And you know a celebrity called Wayne Rooney, the footballer, he went there too and he had a transplant. But what was so funny was they took £4,000. £4,000, you can convert that into dollars and guess how much that will give you. £4,000 and not one drop of hair was added on her head. There is no way you can grow hair back from inside. Hair does not grow back if you don't naturally have something in your body that will help push that cell to come out. So whatever it is people are spending money on trying to grow back their hair, if you go and damage your hair or you help your client to damage their hair, £4,000, £10,000. I actually did try to research and find out how much Wayne Rooney spent on his hair, and we're looking at thousands, like £30,000. You need to find out. I don't know how much, but it's a lot of money to go. Here in the UK, it's called Harley Street. You go to Harley Street to get your hair replaced. There's so many different things. They'll be working with you. Laser treatment is another option, but you don't want to go that far. So if you can help your clients so they don't go that far, let them have their own natural hair. Remember we said it's a precious fiber. Help them to achieve that precious fiber by not damaging it. So bad hairstyles is a nightmare. It leads to frustrating bad hair days. And as people who work with hair, you don't want to damage your client's confidence by giving her a bad hairstyle. So this is why we try to work with you to understand what you're dealing with. So here's one part of our body that you can change without actually sitting in a surgery and getting a knife cut into you. So when people go and get their lips plumped up and they get their nose changed and they get their body, all of that requires a lot of surgery. But here you can have an amazing look without having to do any of that. And that's what we as hair consultants and hairstylists give our clients. And that's what I want you to be able to share with your clients. I want you to be in a position where you can make your clients feel good, feel confident, walk through your door and come back. Because when they come back, it shows that you're doing something good and they're proud of what you're doing. And remember, hair is a personal experience. People don't want to walk from salon to salon all the time having a different person touch their hair. So if they trust you and they love you, they're going to come and follow you wherever you go. I've had to change addresses so many times and my clients still follow me because they know that I give the hair the full attention it deserves, and I'm making my sole mission in the hairstyling not to damage any client's hair. If I find your hair is getting damaged with anything, I will advise you on what not to do and what we could do to take care of that situation. And that's the position I want you to be in as well. So again, carrying on understanding hair, we've said the hair is a personal experience and a personal business. So if you treat your clients well, they're going to keep coming back, and this is something that has made the hair industry carry on. And that's why in this recession, things are bad, people are struggling to find a job, people are, sitting out there applying for as many jobs as possible. This is why our industry is one industry that is still growing, because no matter what's happening in your life, you also don't want to kill your confidence just because there's no money. So people do anything to make sure that confidence stays, and the confidence is about their look. Again, another thing I want people to always remember is if you help a client achieve the look she wants, that means she's going to give her all to whatever it is she's doing. So she's going to make sure that if she's applying for a job, she comes out there full of herself, know what she's talking about. She feels good about herself, so she presents her best side. But if she didn't have that confidence, which is her hair is not good, she's not going to feel good about it. And there's bound to be a situation where that interview didn't go well because I was so self-conscious. I was thinking about my hair. So if you give them a situation where hair is not the issue, they have to go and portray who they are to achieve the results they want. You have contributed to everybody's life, and that's why it's important. Don't think your role is not important in society we live in. Your role is very important because you're going to help people find who they are. You're going to help people gain confidence in who they are. So something I want you to help your clients with, they're going to come to you and say, what do I need to do to be able to get that demo papilla, to keep pushing these cells of, the strands of hair out? What do I need to eat? I hear that all the time. Remember to tell them this. If that food that you're going to put into your body is made by nature, so we're talking about natural foods, then what happens is the body will break it down very easily. That's the way to look at it. And I watched a TV program once, and the lady said the way she put it was, if it's made in a plant means it's been manufactured. That means the body will struggle to deal with it. But if it is in a plant, if it is a plant, like something you grew on the ground, then the body can break it. So that's how it works. If it's made by man, we're talking about synthetic food, we're talking about all these foods, you go into the shops and they're packaged, and now everybody's curious about what does it contain, what does this food say we should look at that. So for as long as it's been packaged, there's been some preservatives, there's been some coloring, there's been lots of things that's been changed and altered and all of that, then your body will struggle to break that down. And if the body is struggling to break it down, then it's not going to be able to share that food across your body. So encourage your clients to eat natural food. So we're talking fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, meat, fish, eggs, wholemeal foods, bread, cereal, and nuts. Lots of nuts. It helps. They contain the omega-3s, the omega-6. We're talking plenty of water. And it's recommended at least 2.5 liters of water every day. What does water do? Water helps to hydrate our body. And I read again in places where the body is made of, I think, 70% water. Is it between 70 to 90% water? So if your body does not have water, you are going to struggle. I mean, the body cannot provide for water because you're sweating and so many things is happening. So you're taking it out. You need a lot in order for the body. There's something also called hypoglycemia. The minute there's not enough water in your system, it goes into your brain. The brain is beginning to suffer. But your body can cope with that food. So that's very weird. So the body needs more water than food. So try and drink a lot of water in order to hydrate your body. And when your body is hydrated, it also hydrates your hair. And you remember we're talking about hair being dried. So we need a lot of water to help our hair get a lot of moisture. We also need water because it helps to detoxify our body. Detoxifies, there's so much going on in our environment. We inhale a lot of fumes from all the cars, depends on the city you live in. So there's a lot of cars and there's a lot of carbon in the air from the car pollution, everything happening around you. You're inhaling it in and it goes into your body, it messes up your system. So the more water you drink, again, remember the foods we're eating that are really not healthy. Remember the water we're drinking that's not healthy, and all the drinks, all the different types of drinks full of sugar, full of all kinds of things. We need to clear them from our system, and that's what water does. So water helps to cleanse you up. That's what detoxify means. So we need to clear our system of all the nonsense and grime we've been putting in. We also need a good rest. Because the thing with the cells of the body, the only time they can multiply and do what we want them to do is when you're actually resting. I know this is really tough, especially in the Western world where we never have enough time to sit down and just say, that's it, let me just lift my legs up. No, it's hard. But it's the only time that our body actually sits down and does its own little job. So when you're resting, that's when your body does its job. So if you are really that concerned about your hair growth, you need to have at least your 8 hours of sleep. That's what they recommend. So exercises is another thing that's very important to us. We need to exercise a lot. When we exercise, what happens? So we take in oxygen and then we inhale out carbon dioxide. So the more oxygen we take in, the more it actually helps to circulate the cells in our body and allow them to do what they need to do. So do a bit of exercise, even if it means just walking to work, or at least walking to the bus stop, or walking to the train station, or walking to wherever it is you want to your friends, to your family. It's important you walk. A bit of walk will help to send some air into your system, your lungs to be free, and then allow your body to do what it needs to do. So we want to keep the blood flowing. The oxygen helps to do that. So those are the things you need to guide your clients with in order to encourage them to have their hair growing as they want it to grow. Now we've talked about hair, we've talked about the different types of things we should be looking out for a strand of hair. Remember, all this basic knowledge we're given on hair is referring to all hair types, but each time I'm focusing on the afro hair, I break it down to this is what I'm talking about with the afro hair. But now we're looking at hair and what could cause its damage. What causes hair damage? There are so many things you have to look at, because then you have issues like, but I eat healthy and I exercise and I'm watching the water I take and I'm doing all the things I need to do, and still I'm not getting hair growing out of my hair because I've been told that 1.2 centimeter grows every month and I should have about 13 centimeters in a year. And maybe I'm 30 years old and my hair is still just there. Why is that the case? There's so many reasons responsible for why your hair may not be growing as much as you would have expected it to grow. Interesting thing, I had a young girl just coming today, and we're looking at hair extension, and this hair was 24 inches. And she just put it on her body, and she was like, "Oh, I would have loved to have hair as long as this." Yes, we all wish we could have long hair, but there are some things that are beyond our control in our search for long hair. And these are some of them. So number one is the hereditary or the genetic reasons. Genetics means this is in your genes. So it's in the genes of your clients that whatever they do, this is the certain amount of hair that should happen. And so nothing's going to change it no matter what they do. So genes, you probably inherited your mother's genes, more of your mother's genes, or more of your father's genes. So it could be on your mother's side of the family, there's very few hair on the head, and so you just took that part of the family. And look at my hair, and I've had instances where I have my clients say, my daughter has less hair than my son. And I say, yeah, it's just the way it is, it's the genes. So if that is the case, don't stress yourself anymore. Just look at the other options of how you can get good hair, or at least long hair if that's what you were looking for. So again, the reason I'm giving you these things is for you to be able to explain to your clients what's going on. Don't let them go stressing themselves because they wanted to have really long hair and suddenly they've done all they need to do and their hair is not growing. So hereditary factors are very important. And examples exist. We look at the royal family, for instance. We have Prince William, who's so young and yet has lost all his hair. That's just hereditary. It's not because he's old. Lots of people think baldness is tied to age. No, it's not. It's hereditary in most cases. The next thing is the aging process. So the minute people start growing older and older, what happens with the body? The human cells does not, multiply as quickly as it did when you were younger. Okay, another thing to look at is when the food comes in, it breaks down really quick when you were younger. Now as you grow older, hence you see lots of old people, to lose weight takes longer. Because what's happening, the body is taking a longer time to break down what you put inside. And that's why what you put inside as you grow older, you have to be really, really careful, because some of them might just sit there for days on end, taking its time to break down. So the same thing applies to our hair. If the process of breaking down is taking so long, it also takes so long for it to circulate it. It also takes so long for the cells to multiply. And that's why the hair is not growing as much as when you were younger. And I hear this all the time. People come in and say, when I was so young, my mom used to play with my hair was so long. This is why I advise all the time, do not grow bald before you grow old. Why do I say that? Because when you grow old, you're going to be bald. It's just nature. That's the way it is. Why? Because your cells are not going to multiply as quickly as they did when you were younger. And so the aging process will start happening. I mean, look at when you run. When you're young, you run with so much energy. But when you grow older, you become sluggish. So the same thing happens internally. That's what's going on. So your hair is also going to be very slow in growing. And then eventually, you look at your great-grandma, there's no hair on her head. That's aging. So the aging process is going to happen. And if you allow yourself to be your hair to be messed up while you're young, by the time you grow old, there will be no hair on your head. So the sooner you start taking care of your hair while you're still young, there's every chance you will have hair as you grow older. It might not be as much as when you were young, but it will still be there. So remember to remind them, the aging process has a lot to do with their hair. So the next stage we have to look at is the state of your health. Remember, we talked about how the food gets broken down and then the food is being circulated around your body. Now, if you're not in good health, that's even worse. Good health means your body is saying, you know what, she has high blood pressure. What should I do to keep that part of her body going? Her lungs has a problem. Her kidney has a problem. So every part of your body has a role to play to keep you healthy and active. Now, if any part of your body is struggling, when food is being shared within you, these foods are being sent to these different areas to take care of that part. So the state of your health will determine. You remember we said something about your hair is as healthy as you are. If your health is not that good, it affects your hair, because your hair is the last place that the body is trying to feed, for the reason that you can live happily without hair. That's the way the body sees your hair. So your state of health will have a lot of impact on the hair on your head. Medication is another major part of what's affecting your hair. And this is an example. When people have chemotherapy, say someone has cancer and then they're going under chemotherapy, what chemotherapy is all about is it stops your body from multiplying the cells. So the reason being, what causes that cancer is a lump of cells, too many cells in one place. So they want to stop the cells from growing some more. So they put you under chemotherapy. Now, because they've instructed your body to stop multiplying cells, so the cells that are coming to create your strands of hair also stop multiplying. And so suddenly all the hair on your head goes off. That's why cancer patients don't have hair, because there's no cell. You remember the telogen stage where the hair starts dropping off. At the catagen stage, nothing is happening. The cells are not being fed. Remember, the dermopapillae are not being fed. That's exactly what happens. Nothing is being fed into the follicles, and so the follicles decide, okay, there's nothing going on here, and so all the strands of hair starts dropping off. That's telogen, and that's what happens. Hair is automatically pushed into telogen once chemotherapy takes place. The same applies to when you take on antidepressants. The same applies when you're taking on very, very heavy medication. What happens is they actually slow down the progression of the cells in the body, and so the body struggles to deal with them. And so the last thing the body is thinking of is to multiply more cells for your hair to grow. So the next thing you need to understand as well is the hormonal imbalance. Hormonal imbalance happens when you take weight loss tablets, you take pregnancy pills. During these stages, the body is being overfed one thing or the other. And you remember also when they talk about teenagers, they go, oh, they're going crazy with their hormones. Hormones is when different things are happening in your body, you have no control about them. So at different stages of our life, different things are going on. So you remember we talked about the menopause. That is another case of hormonal imbalance. So we have estrogen for women and testosterone for men. So estrogen, a lot of it coming into your body also affects you. And usually these are like the pregnancy stages where you're pregnant or you're taking on lots of weight loss tablets. Menopause, these are different times when a lot of things are going on in your body and you have no control about them. Now these things again affect the multiplication of cells in your body, which is what's affecting your hair strands. We also have emotional stress. Now emotional stress to me is the worst of all the things that affect our hair. Hence I say to you, if your client is having issues with hair, please say to them, please do not stress yourself, because that stress, some people call it the silent killer. Stress is something that nobody can see. You cannot touch it, you cannot deal with it. It's an emotion, it's something going inside. It's like an emotional turmoil. You're just going through so much internally, and some people stress and then fall into depression. So avoid stress. If you find that something is worrying you, affecting you, making you think, the best thing I always say to people is, whatever it is, just face it head on. I know it's hard for some people, but if someone's upsetting, walk to the person and say, this is what you've done. I can't deal with it. It's affecting me emotionally. The minute you talk about it, you've gone out of it. For some people, I personally am like that. If I talk about what's affecting me, I'm done. So if people can deal with what's happening, you're done. It takes away the pressure, because once you're emotionally upset, what happens is your cells start to disappear. They start to break down. They start fighting themselves. And this is something I always talk to as many people as I can find who are getting into that situation. My children as well, I'm always advising. The minute you start getting emotionally stressed, it's affecting your cells. And this is what, for most women in particular, leads to old age, wrinkle. You hear about wrinkle all the time, because when the cells start disappearing or fighting each other, they start creating pockets. I'm not going to go too much into that, but what happens is you go into all kinds of sicknesses. Lots of people get high blood pressure, lots of people get stroke, lots of things happen to us when we're emotionally stressed. So if you think worrying about your hair not growing is going to help your hair come back, you've lost it. You don't need it, because it's going to lead to more and more problems, and it's not going to help you. So guide your clients, stay away from stress, especially as regards hair. Because what I always advise is, we got wigs. So we got wigs, we got the extensions, we got so many things going on. If you find something's gone wrong, let's find an alternative, and it will help you. You can still get the image you want to have. People can still admire you. You can still look beautiful. It doesn't have to be that hair that's growing out of your head. So if you find anything is causing your problem, that's making you think, if you worry about it, then your hair is going to come back. You're actually going to lose more hair. If there was any more hair left on your head, you're going to lose that hair. So don't let worry take away your hair. So the next thing you have to worry about is, not worry, but think about while talking to your clients, is the physical stress. And physical stress is where braiding is one of the things, but not just braiding, tight hairstyles, constantly brushing. So people who just enjoy this brushing of their hair, that saying, it strokes a brush a day makes your hair grow. That's not for the black hair. That could have been for Caucasian hair. Maybe again to help the sebum stretch itself on the hair strand. I don't know why they came up with that saying. But for a black hair, you don't need that many strokes of brush, please. You don't need too much stress on your hair strands, because the more you drag and try to straighten that hair that's naturally coily, the more you're actually physically stressing the hair. And braids, if you are braiding, try not to hold the scalp too tight. Because when people say to me, what caused my hair damage was the braids, I like to know what happened. Because if you had done a chemical relax on your hair, and then you came again and take braids and put on, or you put on the cornrows and then you stitch the hair extensions on the hair, you have aggravated all the stress in the world on one head. Remember, we said it's such a precious fiber. Why do you have to do all of this? Question I ask is, if you know you're going to wear weave, why do you need to relax your hair? There is no need for it. So do not put chemicals in your hair if your plan is you're going to wear weave all the time. Just let the hair be natural. You can still wear weave with it. Worst case scenario, hot comb, which I still don't recommend, but it's better than putting the chemicals and completely killing the hair or altering the way the hair is. And then you start putting the weave, and hence your hair is hanging on a thread. So if that is what you're doing, physical stress is all these things. It's not just the braids, it's the chemical you put in your hair, it's the constant brushing, constant cornrows, constant ponytails. Everything you can think of leads to physical stress. Rough handling is another one. So when you're taking out braids, for instance, you're just getting all wound up because you've had these braids on for a month, 2 months, and so you're in a hurry, you just want to cut. Well, you cut and it takes time to grow it back. So then you turn around and blame the braids for the problem you're going through. It's not the braids, it's you. Stop rough handling your hair and watch the equipment you use in your hair. If these things are going to snap into your hair and pull them apart, you're not helping yourself. Next thing you have to consider is the toxic substances in whatever we're dealing with. So the foods we're eating, there's something they call the GM foods, genetically modified foods. These are foods that they have altered the way nature created food. I mean, I've read in places where in the past you could eat an apple a day and you don't need to see the doctor because you're eating healthy. Now you can eat a bag of apple and you're still going to see your doctor because the apples we eat today do not contain what apples used to have. So in as much as we say stay healthy, eat healthy food, eat natural foods, well, they're the better alternative than eating the packaged foods. But trust me, they don't completely give you everything that you need. So there's a lot of toxic things going on around us. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the drinks that we buy, the bottled drinks, everything has something that's not healthy for your body. So the more of these things you're doing, the more you're affecting your hair. And then of course we have the heat styling, which I've talked about over and over and over. So the blow dryers, the thermal being you're using the hot comb, you put it in the stove and you come out and you comb the hair through. It takes away all the moisture from the hair. That affects your hair. Flat iron, the curling tongs, all of that is not healthy for your hair. look at is chemical relaxers or chemical treatments. We might say relaxers because we're dealing with the black hair, but treatment generally being anything that's going to take chemicals. Remember, we've gone through the whole process where the chemical goes into the cortex and changes the disulfide bonds. Now, things you need to know about chemicals. I write about chemicals all the time, and I wrote a blog. I called it the 5 things you need to know about chemical relaxers. I'll quickly take you through that so you have an idea. And our blog is worldofbraiding.wordpress.com. So what I talked about was the chemical relaxers being an example of what that is. It could be any brand. Don't pick me up that I showed you one brand. It could be any brand. Now, the things you need to know is, I've done a video on this as well. If you take your magnifying glass and you look at it, what you'll be finding is sodium hydroxide is the main chemical in there. They call them active ingredients. The active ingredient in relaxers are sodium hydroxide. And in here, this is a zinc unblocker. And what this does is unblocks the drains in 15 minutes. So can you hear what this does? Same exact ingredient in it, sodium hydroxide. Interesting thing about these things is it shows you things that you shouldn't do. So it's telling you that it's very corrosive. This is one that I really love to look at. Again, contains sodium hydroxide, this brand, and it's showing you images. It's corrosive, it's oxidizing, it's harmful, it's highly flammable. But on your relaxer, there's no image, nothing, and a 12-year-old can go into the shop and get this and go home and do it by herself. Now, I showed this to a client the other day and she was in shock. How come no one tells us these things? No one's telling you because you're not making it your business to try and know what you're using and what you're putting on your body and in your hair. Remember, we said it's very precious fiber. So if you bought a cashmere coat, would you be taking the zinc blocker and pouring on it? You wouldn't. After spending $6,000, you wouldn't be taking the one that claims to be lighter, which is the no lie. You won't be taking that and put it on your cashmere coat. These are some of the things these things do. The job is to clear the fat, the grime that you put in your sink, the grease, the food debris, and germs from the kitchen. So everything that you don't want to see is what these things take care of. And that's what's going into your scalp, into your hair strand. And what does it do? It actually depletes. What it does, it takes away the protein. Remember the disulfide bonds? It goes in there and it takes away the protein in the sulfur bonds. And that's when your hair then becomes limp and lifeless and is dead. Already hair is dead, but then it becomes absolutely useless, because at this stage what then happens is the hair will snap at any stage. There's no protein to help give it that. We talked about how the hair can stretch and snap up and down. It disappears. So things you need to know about your 5 major things you need to know about your relaxers and colorants and all of that. Relaxer in particular, they contain sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, lithium hydroxide, guanidine hydroxide, ammonium thioglycolate. If you watch the Good Hair documentary by Chris Rock, he went at really great length to explain what this is all about. And someone did they were trying to show you what this could do to other things and experiment, and they put a can of Coke in this chemical, and you could see how it just drained the Coke of all the colors and everything that was on it, depending on the number of minutes they left it in. So that's what's happening to your hair. So when these chemicals, the pH balance, which is what we normally try to compare what we put on our body, it's either alkaline or acid. And alkaline is the extreme end and acid is the extreme end on the other side. And so usually on the body we want something that's in the middle, 7.7 or 7.5, and that's what it should be. But for us, we're dealing with extremes, and the extremes we're talking about with these chemicals are between 13 to 14. Now that is not normal. That should not be on your skin or any part of you. But the interesting thing you need to know is when these chemicals are applied incorrectly or they're left in the hands of people who are not trained to use them, they then put in your hair and they simply melt away your hair. Remember I talked about a situation where your hair may not grow back again. When this thing is put on your head and it burns it completely blocks off all your follicles. When your follicles are completely blocked off and it becomes shiny, there's no amount of laser treatment you're going to do or Harley Street you're going to go to that your hair will come back again, because there's nowhere for the hair to pop itself out. So that's what you need to really be aware. So whenever you start taking yourself and putting chemicals in people's hair, consider what you're doing. Because I've had people come here to train and they say to me, but when I got back to practicing, people were walking in and saying to me, could I do relaxer? Could I do relaxer? I say to you, if you did not train in how to work with this, don't go touching them, because these are very damaging chemicals. The other thing they say to you is, when you're going to apply this chemical, make sure you wear gloves. Okay, so you wear gloves and you protect your hand. What about your head? I've had arguments with people, hairdressing teachers or cosmetology teachers, telling me, why am I preaching that people should not use chemicals? And I say to them, but you say to people to put gloves on their hands to protect their hands. What do you say to people to use in protecting their scalp? Because there's no amount of protection. People say, why didn't you put Vaseline on the scalp? Can you cover every part of your scalp with the Vaseline? Because again, another thing is, if you put too much Vaseline on the scalp, the relaxer is not going to do its job, because the Vaseline has stopped it from actually acting. And then the other thing that happens is, some people, after they've applied the relaxer on the hair and now it's time to wash it out, they don't have that product to actually stop the action of the sodium hydroxide, because his job is to deplete. That's his job. They call it lye. What lye does is, once it goes in, it just carries on. It doesn't stop, to the point that so many governments only specify a certain quantity in certain products. So even when it's going into your sink, they allow a certain percentage. But we are happily applying that thing on our hair that is so precious, and then we turn around and we complain that our hair is damaged. You should expect it, because it's going to get damaged. So this is something I want everybody to be aware of. So if after you know what this could do, and you still insist on having your straightened, relaxed hair, then you're welcome to have it. Because when you have the problems, don't look at anyone, look at yourself and say, why did I do that? Another thing you have to completely consider is, it really baffles me why people put these chemicals in their hair and then they turn around and put the weave on. If you know you want to wear weave, wear weave. Don't go putting chemicals in your hair. But if you must put chemical in your hair, do not wear weaves, because you cannot mix both things. You're actually stressing out your hair so much that it cannot take the pressure. So please be aware of what damages you are causing, or damages that people are causing around you. Another thing you have to also remember about the chemical relaxer is, we talked about the follicles. The follicles are like a means of sending information into your body. Hence, you have people who smoke, and then they put that patch on their skin and they say, this patch is going to help you stop smoking, because they're actually sending some nicotine through the patches into their bloodstream. The same thing applies to your bloodstream when you put chemicals in your hair. Once it touches your scalp, it's actually going through your follicles into your bloodstream. And this is just settling in there and causing so many harmful things which you cannot tell. I cannot tell. And this is why most hairdressers, they suffer a lot from lots of inhalation of this chemical in their body. Most times pregnant women who are hairdressers, their children end up having different types of disability from things like this. All that chemical you're inhaling into your body, you don't know the effect they're having on you. And we've said we live in a system that's already very toxic. Why do you want to add more toxin into your body? So you have to think about this. So apart from the chemical relaxers, which we've talked about and you now know what it means, is the shampoos and the conditioners. What are in these things that we're also putting in our hair? This is especially for the black hair. Now the shampoos, make sure you're looking out for shampoos that say sulfate free. Sulfates are detergents, and what they do is they simply lather. So when you have a shampoo that's lathering and smells amazing and you're feeling great with yourself, you're not really helping yourself, because the more lather you're experiencing while you're shampooing your hair, the more water has to go in. And so the more you're washing, the more you're taking out the little oil that you actually had on your hair. And so once you washed out all that oil, which you made your hair very dry now, you come out of the shower and you want to walk with your hair, and it's refusing to walk with you because there's no more oil on the scalp or on the hair. So the sulfates are not healthy. And then the silicone in the conditioner is another thing. So what do the silicones do? They actually, again, block your strands of hair from breathing. They're practically like plastic. So they just coat your strands. And what they do, they don't let your hair be itself. So it becomes, again, dry and very brittle. So you don't want too many of these chemicals in your hair. And you remember the water as well. Water in most parts of the world are very hot because of all that chlorine, all the different chemicals they put in order to protect our system from getting bugs from the water. So this same water goes into our hair, again, adds more of these chemicals into our head, and so we finish washing the hair and there is no way you can walk with your hair. So these are the things that are really affecting your hair. So all these things I've mentioned are some of the things that you cannot control, or you can help yourself control them, but they are the things that are not helping your hair to grow. Okay, so remember we talked about water. We said what's affecting the water and making it dry is the chlorine content in the water. The next thing you have to consider again is the weather you live in. So what kind of weather do you have? And I know here in the UK we struggle a lot with our weather. And I've had clients who said when I was back in Africa, my hair was doing really well because there was sunshine, there was everything going on. And since I came here, my hair's really dried out and become so brittle and is breaking. The weather you work with does affect your hair. Hence, it's important. This is what I recommend to my clients, especially when the weather really changes. So you have the autumn, you have the spring, you have the winter. Winter and autumn are usually really not healthy for the afro hair because the weather doesn't have any, there's no moisture in the atmosphere. So this affects your hair, and times like this, protect your hair. And this is where I recommend you put them in braids, you put them in twists. And I know I love wearing my wig, especially during weathers like this, because they're like hats for me. So if I cover my hair and I put it on, my hair is protected from the atmosphere that is really drying. So the weather you live in has an effect on your hair.